Hi there and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be speaking to you about iridology. I actually practice clinical iridology as part of my practice, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't know about or understand. And I thought it would be a lot of fun to share the potential of what you can see when you look into your eyes more deeply. So let me start by sharing my screen so I can give you a visual. And so clinical iridology, it's just a diagnostic technique which looks at the iris, which is the colored part of the eye, and it allows us to see what is going on in a person's health, their constitution, any sort of potential health issues that they may want to be aware of. And the idea really here is that the eyes, especially the iris, can reflect the information that is going on in the body's internal organs and systems, and we really do that by mapping out the eye. And so we look at the colors, the patterns, the markings, and look at the potential imbalances and the weaknesses and whatever genetic predispositions someone might be dealing with. So, in clinical iridology, the belief is that there are only two eye colors: brown, what we call genetic brown, and genetic blue. And all of the other eye colors are actually a result of imbalances within the body, whether it's lymph issues or too much toxic buildup within the body. One of the other eye colors that is getting more and more acceptance is this idea of a biliary eye, which is, a cross between a blue and a brown eye. For the most part, generally speaking, it's genetic blue, genetic brown. Okay. So this eye actually belongs to the woman that I learned regenerative health from. And she had a lot of toxicity in her body. She went through a lot of surgeries when she was a kid, a lot of antibiotics, all kinds of issues with her health. And for most of her life, she thought she had green eyes. And it wasn't until she started doing detox work in regenerative health that all of the toxicity started to come out of her body. And as a result, she started to realize that she had blue eyes, but there was so much toxicity within her body that her eyes were green. So this is, I think, right before she had her two younger children. And I know that she had to stop doing regenerative detoxes because she needed to just have her babies and focus on breastfeeding and getting her kids into like a good state. And I think now she's back on doing some deeper detox work to clear out the rest of what is left. So all this white that we see in our eye, this is still lymph issues that are going on, and a lot of, some toxicity that is still left in her body, but a massive improvement. She also, like you can see these rings here, this is like as a result of a lot of damage to her nervous system. So I wanted to share about this because it's actually quite fascinating, right? So, changes in the color of the iris can indicate issues related to different organs. For example, a yellowish hue can suggest liver problems, and darker areas can also indicate potential toxicity or inflammation, right? And so the patterns in the eye includes the lines, the fibers, the rings, and these all represent different aspects of someone's health. For example, a herringbone pattern can indicate a person's ability to absorb nutrients, and while a ray pattern can suggest nerve or muscle health. So I just want to go back to this eye for a second. So when we're talking about fibers, we're talking about these fibers that go outwards, and depending on how they are shaped, we know what someone's constitution is. And sometimes you see like these lines that are coming across, That tells us there are things that are going on with the organs that those lines are sitting on. So when we're doing an iridology report, we actually put a map over the eye to look at everything. So any spots or marks can be linked to weaknesses or dysfunctions. So it's really, really important if you see a spot on someone's eye and looking at the map where that corresponds with, like what is the organ, what is the tissue that is affected. And it is really, really important to ask questions and find out, if there are specific symptoms that someone is dealing with. The pupil shape also indicates what's going on. I'm going to share a image that indicates this quite well. So if a pupil's like really, really dilated, it can actually indicate that someone's nervous system is really, really active. So the theories behind our iridology is really that the eye is the window to the soul. The iris is a map of the body. And we can look at the iris to see what's going on with the organs, tissues, the different body systems. And this concept really stems from the idea that nerve fibers in the brain connect directly to the iris, right? Everything in our body is connected. And any changes that are impacting our health will also start to show up in our eyes. So there are different ways of doing clinical iridology. The constitutional analysis is really to assess someone's overall constitution, which means where are their health strengths, where are their weaknesses, and we also want to be looking at potential genetic predispositions, because maybe someone doesn't have a certain illness yet, but depending on what we're seeing in their eyes, we know what systems to support in the body. So we can actually curtail certain things. Really, really important to detect organ dysfunction, because we can also see by what is going on in the eye what kind of imbalances there might be within different organs, such as the liver, the kidneys, or especially the digestive system. So I'm going to show you a couple of images where we can see that. Looking at our eye, we can also look for signs of toxicity or inflammation. That's really important to see. And especially when there's a lot of white in the eye, that generally indicates that there are things in a blue eye. If we're seeing a lot of white, it's usually an indication of lymphatic stagnation. In someone who has a brown eye, if there's a lot of cloudiness, depending on the amount of cloudiness that we're seeing, that also indicates that there's a lot of lymphatic stagnation. And then, of course, iridology can track changes in health over time. So you can start on a protocol, and let's say 6 months in or a year, after a year of doing different types of protocols, you would actually want to take a picture of your eye and see what has shifted. That's really interesting and enlightening. And I know many people, as they do the work of regenerative detox, they see the changes in their eyes. And so it does reflect what you're doing in your body does start to show up in your eyes as well. And so it's just a fun little tool that I like to use along with my health questionnaires. And oftentimes I find when someone comes in to do an iridology report, what they are filling out in their health questionnaire lines up a lot with the iridology report as well. So it's pretty interesting how that kind of works out. So I wanted to show you a couple of eyes. So in this particular eye, right, there's this area around the pupil that's all like gut area, but there's a lot of stuff going on in this eye. So we know that there are some deep gut issues. Just by the shape of the iris, I would suggest that this person get a spinal adjustment or an osteopathic adjustment. And I mean, ordinarily, I would put on a overlay on this eye and do like, kind of look at where these lines here, what organ are they sitting on top of? But this line in particular, this area here goes up to the brain. So this is toxicity leading up to the brain. And then there's also this kind of hue around the outside of the eye. So to me, that indicates a cholesterol ring. So there might be cholesterol issues going on with this person. So generally, when I do a clinical report, we're looking at a lot of different areas in the eye. And usually I like to kind of focus on three main things for someone to work on as we start their initial consults. And then over time, as we're peeling back the layers, we look at some of the other things that might need to be addressed. I wanted to show a different eye here. So notice how big the pupil is. So this person is actually in a state of fight or flight, right? Their nervous system is quite amped. And then there's all this coloring around the pupil as well, which indicates some gut issues. Same hue as the previous eye, so I kind of feel like this person also has a cholesterol ring and a lot of not a lot, but a fair bit of white. So lymphatic stagnation, some yellowing. So also think that a lot of this is old gut stuff along with some toxicity. So with all of these lines that are showing up in the eye, I would put a map over their eye and look at what are the different tissues that this all lines up with. So there's quite a bit going on with this person health-wise. And we would want to start one step at a time. So I would definitely want to work on settling their nervous system before we get into like some deep, deep stuff. So anyway, I thought I would share that with you because it's such a fun diagnostic tool that I like to utilize in my practice. And I don't usually do full on iridology reports, but generally, the way that I like to do it with people is if they send me in a picture of their eye, I usually pick out, three main things to really focus on. I'll make a note of the other things so that as we continue to do our work together, I highlight some other things to work on as we move through protocols. But it's really beneficial to see someone's eye, like especially the eye like I just showed. Like when I see someone in that state of nervous system disrepair, I wouldn't necessarily make a lot of changes right away with them because they may be in a position where that could be really, really challenging. But I would really focus on tools like meditation and grounding and finding ways to help settle their nervous system before we really start to do that deeper work. So I hope you found this video to be interesting and I don't know if you've ever looked at iridology, but it's definitely a great diagnostic tool that I love to use. If you have any questions, please just drop them below into the comments. I can always do a follow-up video about this. There's a lot to talk about and share about iridology, but I just wanted to do a quick little overview and show you a few examples of eyes. And yeah, so if you have questions, please drop them below. You can also check out all of my freebie stuff in the caption below. And if you haven't checked out my membership yet, check out Elevate as well. It's an amazing way to get started on your health journey. And finally, if you're watching my videos and you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. It allows me to continue to create this amazing content for you. So thank you for being here. Share this with anyone that you think might find this video to be interesting. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.